Obedience to outputs. Across longer time horizons, a quiet trade has become normal. In meetings, a dashboard number ends the debate, and a checklist approval substitutes for understanding what actually happened. As systems scale, obedience shifts from trusting people to trusting outputs, because the cost of comprehension rises faster than the cost of compliance, and that gap widens over time. Power in technological societies often arrives wearing the clothing of objectivity: a score, a ranking, a green status, an auto-generated summary, a notification that says, resolved. People obey systems they do not understand, not primarily because they are careless, but because the system's design aligns incentives toward compliance and places constraints against deep understanding. In the short term, the mechanism is simple. A system presents a decision surface: buttons, thresholds, queues, and required fields. The explicit constraint is time. There are more tickets than minutes, more approvals than attention, more dashboards than meetings can interpret. When a system offers a fast path, accept the recommendation, follow the template, close the loop, that path becomes the default. The trade-off is immediate and concrete: speed and coordination versus depth and context. Understanding becomes a luxury item purchased with delay. In the short term, incentives reinforce this. Many environments reward outcomes that are legible to the system: metrics that can be counted, statuses that can be audited, documents that can be searched. A person who argues from lived context often cannot cite a field, a timestamp, or a chart. A person who cites the chart appears aligned with the process. That alignment is not inherently dishonest. It is a rational adaptation to what the system permits and what it ignores. Over the mid-horizon, feedback loops tighten. Systems do not merely measure work, they reshape it. Once a metric becomes a gate for approvals, people learn to route their labor toward what moves the needle. This creates a loop. The system measures what is easy to capture. Captured signals become the definition of success. Success attracts more resources. Resources fund more measurement. The system grows more confident, and the organization grows more dependent. A second-order effect follows. Compliance becomes a social technology. When people do not understand a system, obedience can still be coordinated. The dashboard says no becomes a shared language that reduces interpersonal conflict. It is safer to blame the output than to own a judgment. Authority migrates from accountable explanation to procedural inevitability. The system becomes a shield. Across longer horizons, the tail risk is not merely error in a single decision, but erosion of sense-making capacity. When outputs settle arguments repeatedly, fewer people practice forming models of reality that go beyond the interface. The organization accumulates brittle knowledge. It can operate the system without understanding the domain the system claims to represent. Resilience declines because resilience depends on the ability to improvise when the map fails. Yet uncertainty remains irreducible. Even well-built systems contain assumptions about what matters, what can be measured, and what trade-offs are acceptable. Data can be stale, categories can be misspecified, proxies can drift. The system may be correct according to its own objective, while being misaligned with the lived goal it was meant to serve. Obedience persists anyway, because the alternative, distributed judgment under time pressure, can look like disorder, even when it is the beginning of true understanding. So the obedience is not mystical. It is the predictable result of scaling pressures, limited attention, the need for coordination, incentives that reward legibility, and interfaces that compress uncertainty into a number. This is where power becomes subtle. Authority is no longer only a person giving orders. It is a pipeline deciding what counts as real, and a dashboard deciding what is discussable. When an output looks objective, attention flows toward it and away from the messy, slower signals that do not fit: edge cases, qualitative reports, quiet harms, long-lag consequences. Governance, then, is not an add-on. It is part of the system, because the system already governs by default. It constrains what can be asked, what can be justified, and what can be funded. Responsibility shifts when decisions are framed as the system's result. The moral weight does not disappear. It disperses into design choices, thresholds, and neglected variables. In a technological society, the central question is not whether systems will be trusted. They will be, because coordination demands compression. The question is what values are encoded in that compression, and what forms of human judgment are being trained out of the culture by repeated deference to the output. Let a single reflection sit on a chosen time horizon, this week, this quarter, or the next few years. Where has a dashboard, a notification, or a required field quietly replaced an explanation? And what hidden assumption made that replacement feel reasonable? Hold that question with disciplined humility.